Greetings everyone, this is CodeWithSrini. In this video, we will look at building forms in Angular 6. In the end, you'll be familiar with different kinds of input fields such as text boxes, checkboxes, radio buttons, drop-down and drop-down list. You will be able to display validation errors next to our input fields and disable the submit button if the form is not valid at all. I thought it is best to have a bootstrap so that we will have a nicer looking UI for our template forms in our application. So I just created a new Angular project called Angular Template Forms. So we will just go inside our Angular project and let's open up our Visual Studio Code. To make certain parts of our forms to work, we need to install Bootstrap for Angular, and that is ng Bootstrap and Bootstrap for styling. So let's go ahead and open up our integrated terminal, which is right over here. And then in there, let's give it as npm I for install and save to put that in package.json and ng bootstrap /ng. Now we have installed Bootstrap, both the Bootstrap and ng Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and add a style, Bootstrap style, to our style.css, which is right over here. Let me just close this. No, let's stay here. Let me give clear and get the terminal right. Okay, so in our style CSS, we need to import our Bootstrap styling file. So it should be at import bootstrap dist css and bootstrap.css, right? So we will be getting a bootstrap styling to our application, and in the now let's generate a component for our form. So basically we'll be working on a job application form, which will be ng-gc job application form, right? So now what I'm going to do is add this job application form. Just gonna get rid of app dash, and then I'm gonna add this into my app component HTML, right? So this will be the selector for rendering this job application form into my app component. So that's done. Okay, let's go ahead and execute this code. Clear this ng so, right. Now it compiled successfully and it is listening on localhost 4200. So let's go ahead and copy that. Job application form works, which is perfect. Now we don't need to make use of this and this. Let's go ahead to the app module.ts to check the ngb module. No, it's not there. So I guess we need to work. Oh, before that, let's go ahead and add some styling to our, not styling, we'll be adding some markup to our job application form. So let's get over to job application component HTML. Let's get rid of this. So we'll be having a div. So div with a class of container, and we'll have a branding which is h3 of Heidi branding, and in that we'll be having a class as well. So class of, it should be a text sender, and then we should have a title for our application form. So people who are going to apply a job in an organization, it should be something snazzy like be a part of our amazing team, right? So this should sound nice. Now let's just get this one alone here. So looks like it's neither working nor it's working, because it's just picked up the text center. The CSS is working fine, but obviously we need our ngb, which is ng bootstrap component, module, to be added in the app module. So to do that, what we need to do is in the import statement, after the browser module is done, we need to add the ngb module, which is not present. So let's go to the import statement over here. Let's go and import what is called as ngb module, and from where it's coming from, it should be coming from at ng bootstrap and bootstrap. That's right. So it's done. Now we need to make use of this, import this into our app module. So that's done. So ngb module is done, and yes, that's pretty much about it. Now the next bit is job application HTML, and get rid of all the mockups which I already did, and inside this form let's add few input fields. In fact, I already got the code for building this entire job application form. You can find the source code in the video description below. So let me go ahead and add a form for us, right? So we will start doing the form from there. Okay, so this is the code that I already got. Our form will look like this. Let's not worry about these things, we will be fixing it later on. So it is kind of a responsive form using a bootstrap. So when the screen size shrinks down, when you're seeing this in a mobile, it will be looking like this. I'm gonna just get rid of this class, we don't need it. So it's just the form. If you take a closer look, so I'm gonna do some code cleanup and continue. After the minor code cleanup, our template looks like this. So basically we have the first name label, which is right over here, and then the last name, and then email, and list of so many input fields that we have in this form, right? So let's work our way through, and let's add some margin bottom, margin top of 4 pixels. That'll do good. Yeah, it'll give some spacing over there. So now if you notice, we didn't include the action attribute in our form, okay, and we use responsive layout for the form. So when the screen size of the viewport shrinks down, our form elements stacked accordingly. So if you just expand it, it'll stack horizontally in line, and when you shrink it down, it'll just stacks up based on the breakpoints that we have set. So for example, at the medium device 6. Okay. Now next thing is validating our form. As you can see, we have built the simple job application form. Now we need to add a validation to our form. In Angular 6, we have a class called form control. For each form control, we need to create an instance of that control class. Using that control class, we can check the current value stored in an input field. Apart from checking the current value, we can see if our input field is touched, dirty, untouched. Dirty means the value is changed, pristine, whether its value is not changed, is it valid, or does it have any errors at all. So in order to add validation to our form, we need to create a form group object for that form and form control object for that form. Okay, so that we can keep track of each input fields that you see right over here. All right, there is another class similar to form control class. It is called as a form group, which we'll be covering later on. Okay, so basically form group is a let's imagine form control is each controls in your template, and form group is a group of controls. Okay, so to begin with the validation, the first thing is we need to include a forms module. So every Angular project comes with just the core and the browser module. To get the forms working, we need the forms module to be included. So let's go ahead and do that. So it'll be import forms module. It should be forms module from, obviously these are all from Angular forms. Okay, typo. Right, now once you do that, all the modules should be imported. So it should be in forms module. Now that's done, so our forms module is ready. Let's get rid of style CSS and let's go to the job application form. Right, so to begin with the validation, we are going to apply a directive which is most commonly used one, which is none other than the ng model. Okay, so our input field will now, let's take the example of a first name input field right over here. So it will look like this. So it will be ng model. Okay, and now let's go to the, there's nothing changed as of now, so let's go to the browser and inspect and console. Right, instantly we are seeing some sort of an error that's going around. Okay, what does it say? If ng model is used within a form tag, either the name attribute must be set. Okay, so this is the most important part. We haven't set a name attribute at all, so let's go ahead and do that. It's name equals first name. Right, so adding a name attribute clears the error that it has been showing up. Now for the name, no, it's gone. Okay, for a template driven approach, this is what all you need. So you have set the ng model and then the name of your input form control. Okay, so let's say I want to listen to a change event that's happening in this control. Right, so what do I do? Right, now we need to first create a reference to our ng model, and the reference is nothing but a template variable. So to do that, all we need to do is create a template variable called first name. So first name will be the name of our template, which is the input field right over here, and we need to we need to assign this to our ng model, so that ng model will make use of our template. Right, okay, now we have enough of information about assigning the ng model to our template, and then our template is ready to be accessed anywhere in this template. Our template variable name is made ready to be accessed anywhere inside our job application template. Okay, now what we're going to do is we need to listen to a change event. Right, so Angular comes with this event called change, and let's expose this to let's assign this to a function called onChange. OnChange, that's fine, I guess, and the template name first name. Right, so if you notice, when we are creating a template variable, it should be starting with a hash and the name of your template variable. When you're going to use it, okay, anywhere else in your Angular, anywhere else in your template, you need to use it without the hash. Okay, just a point to note here, so that only the name of the template variable name is fair enough. Right, so back in the component file, we need to create our onChange method and implement them. So let's just call that as x, and then console.log with x. Now let's see how this behaves and save it. Now let me go ahead and type CodeWithSrini. So okay, see, this is our, let me just blow it up a bit. Okay, and then this one a bit. Okay, all right, this is our ng model, and it is an object. Okay, now if you take a closer look, you got everything in this, everything related to this form control. Right, so what does it say? Instantly, the first thing you will see is the control, which is a form control class that I've been talking about earlier a bit, and then it does have information about a dirty, disabled, errors, invalid, and things like that. These are all just a true false boolean things. Okay, so, and the other one is the value, so what sort of a value that I've just given in the input field. So right, and the valid is true, because we haven't set any restrictions or any validation yet, right? So let's move on to and another bit of information is we can use this form control class to track the state changes and validity of our input field and input fields when we apply the ng model directive along with the name of the attribute of a form field. So back to validating an input. Okay, let's go to the template first, and then alright, here we in HTML5 we can use a required tag to enforce a validation on this particular form field. Okay, let's focus only on this for now, so that we will be going below and then work on the other things as well, right? So now this field is required, and when there is an error, I need to show an error. Okay, so it'll be div dot alert danger. So this alert and alert danger is a bootstrap classes. All right, and let's have first name is required. All right, okay, so it's just showing up without any conditions applied here. So what we're gonna do, okay, and we need to display this only when the input field is not valid. So we go ahead and clean up our template a little bit. It'll be ng if, and remember we use this template variable called first name, right? So we need to use the first name dot valid, right? Oh, and another thing is we need to use if the first name is not valid. Okay, so first name is required, and when you type in something else, it's gone. So if it is empty, it shows up an error. Okay, the functionality as of now works as expected, but if we have a problem like if you load the page, right? So if you load the page, it shows up initially, which is quite intimidating for the user, right? Now let's modify the code to show error only when the user focuses on the input field, and that is when there is no input. Okay, now in Angular we have this thing called, in the form control we have this thing called what is that? Yeah, invalid and touched, right? So let me comment here, a little bit of comment. So we have, what else we have? We have invalid, and we have dirty, and we have touched. Okay, so if the field is not valid, not a valid control, and dirty when a value changes. So that's the opposite of pristine, right? And touched when it receives focus. Okay, so we can make use of these three properties of form control, the first name, and then hide or show this based on these, right? So let's modify our ng if a little bit, like so if the first name, I'm gonna get rid of this first name dot invalid. Okay, so first thing first, if it is invalid, it's going to show up. If it is valid, it's going to hide, right? And then we need to add one more, an and condition with first name dot dirty or first name dot touched. Okay, so it's gone. Now what we need to do is lose the focus out of this input field. Now it will show first name is required, whereas if you type in something like CodeWithSrini, yeah, it passes the validation so it's not showing up the error. So this is one part of it. Okay, now what if we want to show the multiple validation errors? For example, we need to check for the minimum length and the required. Okay, so let's go ahead to our template and give the min length min length property of our HTML file. So the minimum length will be 2, right? So if you type only one character, okay, looks like it's already enforcing it. Okay, but we need to show multiple errors based on the validation for min length as well as the required. Okay, so a separate statements. So to do that, we need to open up, firstly we just keep this thing as it is, and then give a separate validation messages. Okay, the first thing is first name is required, right? That works beautiful. And then the next bit is first name should be what? Should be 2 characters in length, right? So pretty simple, right? But we are missing the essence here. So when we type in, we are getting 2 messages, right? First name is required is also showing up, whereas we don't need that. We need to show only this. Okay, so one more ng if. So ng if equals first name dot errors dot required. Okay, and then right, before I go any further, right, I'm gonna show you the error object. Now if you look at the error object, we have the min length over here, which will have an actual length and the required length. So the required length is based on the min length which you have given here, and the actual length is the one that you have just given. So let's go to the ng if again. So that'll be first name dot errors dot min length. So that will show errors based on the min length. And okay, let's just test the functionality, how it works. Okay, so it will show only the first name is required. Now if I type in, it will show the first name should be 2 characters. That's brilliant. That works superb. Now what we'll do is, this is too much verbose. Tomorrow if there is a change in the requirement, say, oh no, I need the 4 as the minimum character length, what you will be doing, then again, see, this is valid, right? So this works, but the problem is it shows 2 characters in length. Okay, so there should be 4 characters. So to do that, we already seen something here, right? So in the error object, you have seen the required length and the actual length. So what we do is open up the interpolation, and then first name dot errors dot min length dot required length, right? So this will beautifully show the number of required characters that we need to enter. That's done. Okay, so this is pretty much about showing multiple errors, multiple validation errors in a form control. Okay, now we pretty much understood what is ng model doing in our form control and how it behaves on working with validation, right? Angular by default applies ng form directive to all form elements. Okay, so the one you see here. And if you look at the Angular IO documentation for ng form, especially under the selectors, there is this selectors which means by default ng form is applied to all form elements in template, right? So it has a form :not of ng form and things like that. So now let's go ahead and declare a template variable. So for our form over here, so for example, we have seen a template variable which is over here, right? So similarly, we need to apply. So we don't need to apply something called ng model for a form, because as you've seen already, automatically Angular implements that for us. Okay, so our template reference variable will be job form. I think that's pretty understandable. Oh, it's not working. Right, okay. And it will be referencing our ng form. That's good. Okay. And in the documentation, you will notice the output property as ng submit. This output property can be used to raise some custom events, such as when you click on the submit button, you can attach this into your method in your class. So we'll open an event called ng submit and pass them to a method in our class called job submit, right? So, and the job submit will be accepting, we need to pass our template variable into our ng submit. So we'll straight away go to our class and then create a method job form. So it'll be JF, just in short, nothing, no meaning at all. So another thing is we need to console them, right? So we have our form, we need some information, and if you go ahead and do a submit, and in the console you will instantly see ng form. Okay, so the ng form will have a form element, form group, right? And the form group will have controls, which are which is a form control class. Okay, since we have included ng model only for the first name, it is showing up the first name. Rest of the elements are ignored as of now because we didn't attach them to ng model, right? So it will also have all the properties that were present in the form group and form controls, which are aggregated into, or which are grouped into, which will be computed into ng form. So if you have any validation errors, or such as invalid or value or valid, all these property values will be transferred and computed to the final ng form class. Okay, so as you see, from the form control, the value from the form control is also transferred into the top level ng form. So you can use the job form template variable and access these information. And one more piece of information, yeah, whether it is submitted true or not, and then ng submit is the one that we have used. Okay, so this is pretty much about the ng form and the ng submit. Okay, now okay, now let's move on to, so we are just going to ignore last name and email because they are quite similar to the first name validation thing. Now we'll straight away jump to our radio buttons. Actually, this is a, what it is, this is a checkboxes. Okay, we don't need checkboxes because a person's current employment status will be either employed or unemployed, or you know, and there was some error in the HTML side of this. Okay, let's go ahead and fix this. Okay, let's just jump straight down below the right. We already got the markup for our radio buttons, which is employed over here. I'm going to do some code cleanup quickly. Just like any other input field, we need to add ng model to our radio button, and that's a radio. Okay, now we have some sort of an error. We don't have, the error is basically we have ng model and we don't have name for our radio button. So name equals, what sort of a name do we want? Okay, it's an employment status. Okay, so that's the name of our input field. Now I think the error should be gone by now, and we got only one radio button. All right, the reason is we don't want a checkbox, so we're gonna get rid of rest of the checkboxes. Okay, so that's going to be one for now, right? So what if we want to render a list of radio buttons dynamically? So the first thing we need to have is a field in our class. So let's go to the field in our so let's go to the field in our class, and then let's go to the class and create a field called private employment status. So there should be an array with a object called id with 1, and this is just not one, employed. Okay, and then name of employee. Okay, so we created a bunch of lists so that it will be having employed, unemployed, self-employed, and student, right? So we need to iterate over our radio button. So what we'll do is we will create in the form check, we will create a for loop ng for, so that'll have iterate over the list of employment status. So let status of employment status, and then instantly you should be having yes, that's done. Now what we have ng model, and oh, we forgot to add a template variable, which is which might be helpful. Let's call it as emp status equals ng model, right? And then we need to create a id, right? This is right now it's rubbish, so we'll just go ahead and use a property binding called id, and then status dot id. So what is this status dot id? This one is nothing but you're using a id of this. Okay, and status dot name will be referring to this, and the name, where's the name? So again, a property binding with a name equals status, oh no, it's not a name, it's the value, status dot name. Okay, and final piece in the puzzle is the label. Okay, so here it should be status dot name to display the label names of our current employment status. So obviously we have employed, oh, it's not working. Okay, that's okay, the radio buttons are working, but when you click on the labels it is not working. That's because it is referring to a invalid check, which is not the right thing. So for that we need to bind the property for with the status of id. Hopefully this should work. Yes, it's working, right? Now we have the required id and yeah, we pretty much have everything, and we need to, I mean, when the page loads, right, when the page loads, if you notice nothing is checked. Okay, so we need a way to check the radio button by default. Okay, to do that, there is a thing in Angular called two-way data binding. Okay, the two-way data binding is the most popular concept in Angular, which is carried from the version 1 till now. Okay, the two-way data binding is there is another name for the two-way data binding, is it's called as banana in a box. So let's open a banana in a box, which will look like this, a box firstly a box and a banana, so and then the ng model. So this is how you define a two-way data binding, and then you need to bind them to a field in a class called employee status. Now remember, this is employee status and this is employment status. Okay, so so the employee status will be referring to only one field in a class, and it will have a value of your radio button. So back in the component, now in the component you need to declare a variable for that. Okay, so that should be private. Now what's that? Let me just copy paste that. Right, employment status, and then in the on init, let's make use of that employment status equals. Okay, when the page loads, when the component inits on init, we're gonna set the first one, the first one to be set as the default check. Okay, so this will be like this dot employment status of 0. Okay, and refer them to the name, so the name will be set. All right, so it's working as expected. So this is how you're gonna set a default. You're gonna get the radio button checked by default. Okay, and this is how a banana in a box two-way data binding works. Right, so let's move on to working with drop down select button. So far we have done with the radio button. Now let's move on to the drop down select box, which is right over here. Now what is that? So it is actually, okay, we got our code. It's actually the position that you're applying for, right? So where is it? It's right over here. So yeah, it's a select class form control and with an ID of job position. Now just like other input field, we need to add ng model directive for our drop down selection box. So let me clean up this code a little bit, and then let me add ng model. Again you will have we will be getting an error because we need to add a name for our drop down, which should be the name for a drop down. I don't know, job position, maybe job position, right? That looks good. So for now we got the error gone. And as with any drop down, the values will be fetched from an API obviously, and here we will use a field in our class called a job position list, which I already have. So just below the employment status, we will create a job position list with an ID and an awesome position 1 2 3 4 till the 5. Okay, so let's get rid of this and let's create ng for let pos of pos position and job position list. So you should be having list for now, and then we should be setting a value, right? So we need to open up a property binding and do a ng value to our drop down list. So that will be pos.id is the value of our drop down list, and then the name of our list, so pos.name. So these names and ID comes from this, right? So from this, right? So when you use a drop down, you can see awesome position 1 2 3 till the 5. Okay, so that's pretty much done. And so this is how you can go ahead and use the drop down in the template driven form in Angular 6. I mean in any version of Angular. Okay, so one last thing is have we gave it a required, should be required, I guess. Okay, another thing is, did I forget anything? Yes, we need to, there might be a situation where we need to disable the submit button, right? So see, if the form is valid, you need to enable a submit button. So to do that, okay, it's quite simple. To do that, it's fairly simple. We can make use of our form template variable, which is job form, which we have created earlier, right? This job form template variable, it contains, as we have discussed, it contains all the necessary properties that we can make use of, like the valid, touched, untouched, and dirty. Okay, we're not going to use many things at once, but what we're going to use is open up a input property binding called disabled, and then we're going to make use of job form dot valid and call it as not. Oh, actually it should be invalid, but that's fine. Okay, we just keep it that way for now. So as you can see, the submit button is disabled. Okay, so let's go ahead and create first name. Still the submit button is disabled because we haven't clicked the position for now. So the position is working and the submit button is enabled. Okay, so this is pretty much about the template driven forms in Angular 6. Okay, so if you find this video helpful and interesting, please give a thumbs up and like, and please do share it to your friends, and do subscribe to my videos. If you have any suggestion, please drop down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you so much.